Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here with you all. I look forward to being able to sit with you every time I get the opportunity. So thank you. And I feel like things are coming full circle because the last time I sat with the IGS community for meditation sit was actually just before the month of Shvat was beginning, and we're getting ready to prepare for Adar, and I'm right at the end. And I think that's perfect because I'm not done with Shvat. I still actually want to talk about the importance of this month, this time, and I'd love to share a little bit about what's been on my mind this Shvat, and maybe some of that will resonate with you today. But wherever you are, I hope you're feeling comfortable. And I'd actually like to invite us before we get into our practice to just kind of feel whether you're sitting or standing, however your body needs to be situated right now. I want you to tune into that space in your low back if you're seated, where you feel most rooted. And if you can feel your feet on the ground, you can wiggle your toes in your slippers or shoes and notice your feet touching the ground. I want us to imagine as if we are connected to the earth beyond the layers of carpet, flooring, concrete, bringing our awareness into our feet that are really the roots of our individual trees. Imagine beyond all of the layers beneath us, we're going down into the soil, rooting ourselves. To me, this is so much of the essence of Shvat, is really putting ourselves in the life experience of trees. We're here to celebrate the birth of trees and count their ages so that we can better care for our earth. We're here to plant more trees. We're here to talk about environmentalism and actions to address the climate crisis, to be better stewards of the land. And I want to start with really putting ourselves in that place of being a tree, because a tree needs a few things to survive. It needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs nutrients, it needs care. Very similar to the ways that we need to survive in these lifetimes. And that's really, for me, one of the many lessons of Shvat. It always comes down to how are we remembering our connection to this earth, and just so simply by thinking about our own roots, our own ways of feeling that heartbeat from the soil all the way into our being, that gives us life each and every day. And this Shvat, I've been meditating a lot on how I feel a connection, not just to all nature, but to the plant ancestors, the plant ancestors that I have in my roots. And this is a concept that I want to share with you all. And so if you'll play with me with this creative plant exercise, I'd love to invite you into a little bit of what this Shvat has taught me. Many of you know, who have been sharing space with me over these calls over the last, I guess, couple of years, know that I spend a lot of time in El Salvador, and I'm actually in San Francisco at the moment, which I'm so happy to be, but I'm feeling the cold, I'm seeing different trees, and I'm enjoying it all. And this Shvat, I started in El Salvador, and my family and I have been learning about how to work with the land and how to adapt to this new environment that we're in. Well, it's new and it's old because my family have been farmers on those lands for over 6 generations, and we recently started growing cacao. And cacao is something that is so dear to my heart. Not only is it an ancestral heritage plant to Mesoamerica, to our lands, but I love chocolate. I've always loved chocolate, and it's been an access point for me to learn about my heritage, my peoples, and also to elevate my well-being. And I wanted to share some lessons about cacao with you, and also encourage everyone who's on our call today and watching another time to get curious about who are your plant ancestors, who are your plant ancestors. And if we are meant to remember the land, care about the land during the month of Shvat, let us remember all of the ancestors through the generations, from one generation to the next, that have supported us, all of the ways that different plants have provided us healing, joy, taste, story. Just as our ancestors passed down everything that we know today, the plants that have been with them are also part of our meals, part of our teas, part of our rituals. So I want to ask you to maybe think and consider, what are some of the plant ancestors that are most important to your family, to your heritage, to the ones who crossed borders and across seas that brought those herbs with them, to the plants that your family will turn to when somebody's in need of healing. I can already think of how in the Torah we have all of these different plants that might arrive on Seder plates, that might arrive as part of our recipes, and spices that are so important to really awakening our senses for ritual, like our spices for Havdalah. But what I want to share with you about cacao on my journey as somebody who has an intersectional identity, as someone who is holding so many different parts of the world inside of me that are all learning to exist and love each other. Cacao has been a tremendous teacher for me, and I've actually been doing research about how chocolate is actually has quite a Jewish history. And I don't know if any of you know that, but that this has been something really special for me to explore this Shvat, and I'd love to share that with you. So if anyone's ever tasted chocolate before, you know that there it's delicious. It can be sweet, it can be salty, it can have all these different things. But the origins of actual chocolate are, a lot of people don't know. When you have raw cacao, you're experiencing the closest to the plant. And I want to show you what this looks like. And like, trust me, there's a point here, because we're going to come back to our ancestors, but this is one of mine. I want to introduce one of my plant ancestors to you and how it's been a critical part of my mindfulness practice. So you can see here, this is a cacao tree, and you might be surprised that's where chocolate comes from. Who knew? What is this football looking thing that I'm looking at here? Cacao trees are really incredible because they grow all over. They grow from the base of the tree all the way up through its branches. I had never seen a plant like this until I went to El Salvador and saw it myself. And then when you crack a cacao pod open, there's a white skin around these beautiful purple gems. These are the cacao seeds. And how chocolate is made, those purple seeds are then they ferment naturally inside the pod. They're toasted, then they're ground up into a paste, and then they're made into chocolate. And on my journey of trying to reclaim my identity, understand my own ancestry, I've been able to gather so much of who I am in my DNA through this plant, understanding all the way back to the Maya, who are my distant ancestors, that used to gather around together to drink a cacao drink, to feel their connections to the earth, to feel their connection to their own power and to their heart. If you've ever had a lot of chocolate one day, maybe you were craving it, or it was just a particularly special day, you might have felt a little bit warm in your body, you might have felt your heart beating a little bit more. It's because cacao has that power to bring more energy through the body and circulate through. And there's a deep sacred and spiritual presence, spirit within cacao, because it's meant to awaken our senses. She is, in our tradition in Mesoamerica, cacao is known to be the mother. She is a nurturer and a teacher of consciousness and love. And so the way that I've been able to celebrate Tu B'Shvat, the month of Shvat, has been around, how do I bring more love into my life through my connections to the earth? That has been the greatest lesson teaching that cacao has taught me. And some of the ways that I've been, I guess, in my own research, aka drinking and enjoying cacao, and also studying, I've felt this firsthand of what happens when I sit intentionally with this plant ancestor of mine. What secrets does it have to reveal to me about the ways of old, the ways that our ancestors used to be true stewards with nature and true partnership with relationship to the land, because these plants were sacred and held critical information for our culture, our cultural identity, and our social identity as human beings. And so where we are today, chocolate has come so far, and the Jewish community has actually played a critical role in how chocolate has spread across the world. It was actually Christopher Columbus, who we know sailed from Spain to the Americas. Now, as somebody who has ancestry of people who have been colonized by Christopher Columbus. It's still kind of a rough spot. And at the same time, we know what we now know as part of the history. There were Jewish sailors on that mission that were actually escaping the Inquisition. And there were several key Jewish people who were part of coming to the Americas and bringing chocolate back and cultivating chocolate as an industry throughout Europe. And there was actually one man in particular, Juan Torres, who really worked with the local communities with a lot of respect to learn about cacao, to share cacao. And there's actually some knowledge that he withheld from telling some of the conquistadors because he understood how sacred this plant was. And there's actually something really resilient, really resilient and fascinating about how at one point in time, as Jews really became some of the primary chocolatiers in Europe, when different rules were being set in place to restrict Jews from living the lives that they wanted to live, they were banned from making chocolate at one point. And it was through different channels of trade that they were able to keep that business alive and keep chocolate in the world. And I didn't know any of this, that there was such an intersection between Jewish history and chocolate history. And I feel like there's so much there. But I wanted to share all of this with you, not only because chocolate is an essential part of life that we could all enjoy, but this whole journey of mine has been an invitation to how are we continuing to build relationship to the plants that are part of our heritage? How are we continuing to celebrate the month of Shvat every day? And it doesn't necessarily, we don't have to necessarily wait for Havdalah every Saturday to be with our senses of smell. Where can we bring into our kitchens, into our cups of tea and coffee and around the remedies that we need when we're not feeling our best? How can we bring our ancestors with us from the ground up, from the roots up into our hearts, into our minds, and into our homes? So as we prepare for our meditation today, to really honor the land, to really remember what Shvat is about, I'd like to invite you into this little exercise of reorienting ourselves to the lands that we walk. First, with acknowledging all of the way that the earths that we call home, the lands that we call home, have been cared for by other native peoples that are still here, providing us with oxygen and soil and lush green life around us. Those were cared for by people that really knew how to care for these lands that we walk. And wherever our ancestors are from, let us go into a little journey in our minds and think about wherever that is in the world, wherever your mind is taking you. Think about a place where your ancestors are from the land of Israel, from Europe, from South America, from Spain, from Morocco, from wherever your land of heritage is. Bring to mind the trees of that land. Bring to mind the fruits of that land, all of the healing soil, all the healing herbs. Imagine the taste, spices that go into special dishes that you have that have been passed down for generations. Bring yourself all the way to that place. And let us offer gratitude to these plants for creating an environment of life within our homes, within our communities, that have provided everything that we've needed to survive today, to have lives full of flavor, full of story. As your feet are rooting into the earth beneath you, imagine your roots connecting to those roots all the way in those lands, wherever your ancestors are from. And taking a moment to really express gratitude to all of the ways that you have been provided for and nourished by those plants, by those trees, by those orchards, by those fields. And if you're ready to join me by stepping into our silent meditation for the day, you can stay there in whatever field you're finding yourself in from your ancestors. You can sit up a little bit taller, take a big breath in and a big breath out, feeling from your roots all the way up to the crown of your head, your own tree getting taller, creating more space for oxygen to flow. Your sits bones connected to your seats, shoulders stacked over your hips. Relaxing your eyes, cheeks, and lips, finding a comfortable position. Feeling held by the ground beneath you and from the trees that connect you to all the trees that have provided for your families, for your communities, from generation to generation. Putting yourself in that forest of life, allowing that to sustain you. We'll begin our meditation in silence to be with our plant sisters. And wherever we are, finding our breath, bringing our awareness to our inhales and exhales. Gently calling our energies back to our bodies, back into our roots, following that energy from our feet up our legs to our hips, through the heart to the head. And finding the rise and fall of our breath. And gently guiding ourselves back to the space, back to our Zoom community, to this forest here, where we get to bring this collection of all of our plant ancestors together to make this incredibly beautiful, multicultural forest that is the Jewish community. I hope that you feel a little bit more supported by your earth in your bones and your earth around you. And happy Shvat. It was a good one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. That was just an absolutely delightful teaching and practice. We seal this beautiful practice, offering an opportunity for any of you who are in mourning or observing a yortzeit to participate in Kaddish if that is your practice. And if you are not reciting Kaddish, we invite you to stay present and offer your compassion and your love to those who are in mourning. So you are welcome to put the names of anyone you are remembering in the chat. We'll share Kaddish on our screen, and if you are reciting it, I invite you to unmute yourself and join me to rise in body or spirit as we recite these words together. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash k'mei rabba.
Amen.
Ma divrach yirutei v'amichmach
Yechayek
v'chayek v'chon v'chayek v'kol v'yitzkadal v'adavar
Amen.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
We talk about enough.
All right, so if folks could please mute themselves,
Electricity
Rachel,
itself.
you could help us out with that. Thank you. So thank you again, Kimberly, so much for your teaching today. We're going to stay on now for 15 minutes for a Q&A. And for those of you who have to leave us, we send you off in blessing. Hope to see you at the same time here tomorrow. And for those of you who'd like to stay on, if you have a question for our teacher, for Kimberly, you can go ahead and write it in the chat. And just make sure to preempt it with question in all caps so that we can see that. All right, and if we could spotlight Kimberly, that would be great, as well as me. There you go. Kimberly, thank you again. I was not expecting to get to meditate on chocolate and about chocolate this morning. I'm a huge chocolate lover myself, and you definitely have inspired me to learn more about the history there and the Jewish history there. And I love your invitation to consider our plant cestars and really, it's like a funny name, plant cestars, but it's also there's a way in which it's like deeply reverent. It's like, yeah, these plants that we grow up with and around are part of the source of our life and our teachers and our allies and our healers and our friends. And I just wanted to say thank you for really elevating that relationship and the inquiry and contemplation, just for me personally, that you've inspired. And there's so much I feel that we can talk about here. One question I have for you is, you mentioned that you've sat with cacao and you've been in deep study through research and just through sitting with and being with. And I wonder if you could share more for anyone who's interested in incorporating more relationship to plants and even like specific plants into their practice, into their spiritual life. What does it mean to you to really, like, how do we cultivate a relationship with a plant? I know it exists on kind of a different realm than the language, intellectual connecting with a person, reading a text. There's maybe a different kind of connection and communication, and feels like such a rich area for us to get to explore.
Yes, absolutely. And it is kind of funny, like, okay, we're making a relationship to a plant in the same way that we would think about another dear ancestor from generations ago. But for me, it's been a process of searching. It really started because I was looking for answers about my heritage. And in Latin America, well, I think all cultures, all peoples around the world have story and relationships to agricultural practice, because that is how we all began, by needing to survive off the land. And then, of course, through modernization of life, things become more convenient in packages, and unless we make the effort to have a relationship to the land, the modern world that we live in doesn't necessarily facilitate that. But that's what I love about being Jewish, because we have so embedded in our holiday structure. We have harvest festivals, we have pilgrimage festivals, we have we shake a lulav and an etrog. We have so much in our culture that reminds us of the earth constantly. But if someone's looking to connect with something from their lineage, I saw someone wrote to me that they were thinking about the olive trees in Italy, and they were imagining their Italian ancestors. I just love that. I think that there's anything around us can be a vehicle of connections to all the parts of ourselves, those parts being our past, present, and future. And there's so much there. And like to take for example the olive trees from this person's family, perhaps researching the regions that your family came from in Italy, and finding out the specific kind of tree, or the specific kind of olives, and going on a search mission yourself and finding where you can find that type of oil specifically, and make delicious meals with it, and know that this directly is a link to the lands of my ancestors. And that's just something pretty, I hope, can feel accessible, is just by seeking out the herbs, or seeking out the fruits, or the plants that are so traditional, and consciously building it into the life that you already have, and into the things that you already do, and consume that and be with that in a way of acknowledging, wow, I'm here alive because this has sustained me. And for me with cacao, I had always loved chocolate, always. My family actually had a bakery in Southern California growing up, so I was just like around chocolate 24/7. And I thought it was just because it was sweet, but now I realize, wow, my bones, my DNA had a connection to chocolate. It explains my love for chocolate. And I say that in a funny way, but I actually do believe in our body's memories that carry so much of what we have, like in the same way that we can carry intergenerational wisdom or intergenerational trauma. I think we can carry intergenerational taste buds and connections to the earth. it's just what's familiar and comfortable. So that was my gateway when I came back to El Salvador. My tia, it's like a very chocolate is very popular there, of course, but it's so sweet. It's sweetened with like gallons of sugar, and it's it's delicious, but it's like oof, it's a little much. It's just everyone's very sweet there. But I was getting very curious as a spiritual oriented person. I was getting very curious, and I started to understand all of the spiritual wisdom that the reverence for cacao and the way that it's ceremonial, and the way that it was really a mythological connection for the Maya, the Aztecs, and the Olmecas. They would give sacrifices of humans at the time or of other plants, and cacao was often played a role in that, and it would be the last thing that people would drink before they were sacrificed, because it was of the highest. It's known as Theo Brahma, the food of the gods, because it raises the consciousness so high. And as someone who is actively trying to live a mindful life, what better way to connect to my ancestry than to consume a plant that helped my ancestors connect with the earth and everything above, as well as other people. So my suggestion to anyone would just be to do some research about the plants that are of either medicinal significance to your ancestors, culinary significance, and any cultural heritage that the plants hold. Find them, learn about them, and find creative ways to bring them into your life. And if it's really hard to procure anything like that, maybe there's ways that you can symbolically bring it into your home through a painting, and just pause to look at it and think, wow, thank you for bringing me so much life from generation to generation.
Yes. Amen. Loving this so much. You just reminded me of one of my favorite memories from a meditation retreat, one of my very earliest retreats. We weren't supposed to do this, so I broke a rule. But it was the end of lunch, and there was I was at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, and someone had donated a gorgeous block of dark chocolate. And it was the very end of lunch. We were about to go back in the meditation hall, and I took a tiny piece and I went and sat in the hall, and I just put it on my tongue. And I just like deeply dropped into deep meditation on the taste of this chocolate and the experience of eating this chocolate. And I wasn't even eating it. I was just sitting there with it, but I was already in such a deep space of presence, because it was like mid-retreat, and it was this blissful, like otherworldly experience. So that came to mind. And I just want to offer that for folks also as like a suggestion to, in terms of like really connecting with a plant. I think just bringing it into even a seated practice like that, right? To like take a bite of something, to smell something, to hold something in your mouth and just sit with it and just be with it, and just to be with the taste, the spirit, noticing what it evokes. Judaism also is just so replete with practices around mindful eating and blessing and bringing intentionality there.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think we actually have all the tools that we need, but it's a matter
Yeah.
of bringing into our practice. And I love what you said, and it just reminds me of just the simple truth that everything has a spirit. Every human, every plant has a spirit. And so we can tune into the energies around these plants, and just starting with gratitude. Thank you for existing and being resilient enough to still survive. For in this day and age, for plants to just even exist is a big deal. And then to work with it not only through our senses with deep appreciation and awe, but then to go that extra layer of how this sustained my lineage. There's so much room for growth and healing in that.
Yeah, and how the wisdom of that particular spirit of that plant might have even informed my lineage and the spiritual practices. And what you were saying about also the Maya drinking cacao, it almost reminds me of Kiddush, right?
Yes.
The way that we drink wine with the blessing. And yeah. So it's really fascinating to look into the Jewish tradition, the diasporic tradition. And I saw that someone asked a question about Ashkenazi plant cesters. And I know there's a beautiful book on Ashkenazi herbalism. I forget who it's by, actually.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
I don't know the author either, but if that is, if you are Ashkenazi, I would absolutely
Yeah.
encourage you to check that out, and even just look at like I love that you mentioned, Rebecca, like even just Kiddush wine, like
Mhm.
even just looking at wine as a sacred Jewish plant. There's so much there, and this is like one of the originals.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so there's like all the diasporic like tapestry, as you said. I loved what you said, like forest of the diverse, greatly culturally diverse Jewish community. And then also fascinating to look further back right into the Torah and really the roots of the tradition and what were the plants there, the wine, even the incense offerings and the altar, the frankincense and the myrrh and all of that. There's just so much, and the different kinds of wood and plants that were used to build things.
The foundations of our people, all of our peoples,
Mhm.
was the earth, was in earth practices, and the more that I learn about that, the more supported I feel in my bones just navigating the world, because it's very easy to forget about
Yes.
just about how what a big role plants play in our lives. Like it's just, yes, I'm gonna go make a meal and I'm gonna grab this jar and add these spices or things, but that's where the intentionality practice comes in. So for me to sit, I try to sit every day, if not most days, with a cup of cacao, or even with tea if I don't have cacao with me, to just pause and recognize the miracle of being able to consume with consciousness, and
Mhm.
recognize how these how whatever I'm consuming is supporting my life and bringing me into the earth for a moment when the rest of my world might feel very technological or very boxy and not earthy.
Mhm. Amen. Well, Kimberly, again, thank you so much. This has just been such a delightful, inspiring, delicious teaching. I feel inspired to go have some chocolate. Maybe one last question. I saw someone asked, do you have any recommendations for folks who want to connect to cacao? How they might do so? What would be a good way?
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Chance to go be with trees, come to Central America, or they also grows in the Amazon as well as around Africa and Indonesia. So go wherever cacao is so you
Mhm.
can meet her yourself. You're welcome to come visit me in El Salvador. Happy to show you around. But for now, I would look for places that sell pure cacao, and you would want to look for 100% cacao, or even dark chocolate will suffice. But that's the way that you can get the true taste of what cacao tastes like, what raw chocolate tastes like. And in that you'll get all of the nutrients. It's high in antioxidants. It really is a presence maker because of this sense of awareness in the body and your mind, and your body's very focused. So I would look at your local health food store for looking around 100% cacao chocolate, and this can give you a taste of our heritage.
And do you recommend drinking it, like making it hot, mixing it with
Yeah,
water,
so
or?
different companies will have different forms. The cacao that I work with, and my father and I, we work with farmers and we sell cacao in El Salvador. And essentially the purest form would be, there's two types. There would be like the toasted cacao seeds,
Mhm.
which are those seeds from inside that white peel, and then they're toasted and you can eat them like almonds, like that. But when they're ground down, they become a paste, and then that paste can be dissolved in hot water or any kind of milk that you would like. And then that's how I drink. I drink the ground seeds is essentially what I have, and that's like the purest form. If
Mhm.
you're only able to find like a chocolate bar that's like 100% or 90%, then you can just eat it. It's okay to eat it, just eat it, but there's something about preparing, mixing, blending, sitting, holding something that's warm, and being present with that brings that mindfulness element to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that recommendation and for your beautiful teaching today. Before we go, some folks have asked, Kimberly, do you have a website that you could write into the chat if folks are interested in connecting with your work?
I'm going to put it in the chat right now. I'm going to put my email and then also my website here. And I do need to update a lot of things there, but you can reach me. You can reach me through Learn, Grow, Rise. This is where I'm doing my mindfulness wellness work, and cacao is beginning to play a larger role in that. So I'll be sharing more very soon.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us and coming together today for practice. Hope to see you tomorrow.